Charlotte Smith with BladingOnline.com, and I have on the phone with me Travis Brown. Welcome, Mr. Brown.
And thank you for having me, Charlotte.
Yes. Mr. Brown, you are a farm manager at HD3 Farms. Is that correct?
Well, I started out as a farm manager. I'm an assistant operations manager now.
Okay. And how long have you been with HD3 Farms?
October the 4th makes 6 years.
6 years. Okay. And where are HD3 Farms located?
We have farms from Scotland County all the way to Pender County.
Okay. So, is your farm in any of these lawsuit trials in the hog industry?
The farms under my direct management
are not
in the lawsuit. Greenwood 1 and 2, which are the eastern division of the company, are.
Okay. So, has the trials caused you or your family or any of your staff members stress? I mean, how is it affecting you all?
I think there's stress anytime you're dealing with the unknown. Not knowing, how the lawsuit was going to turn out. Not knowing, what Smithfield's intentions would be after the lawsuit. And obviously their hands are tied, but I think the stress factor is always there. But, Dean has done a good job of structuring the company, and David Mixon has done a good job of structuring the company to where we don't have any layoffs. We don't have anybody being sent home because they pulled the contract.
Right. I have heard that Kinlaw, Mr. Billy Kinlaw, who's in Bladen County, he was the first one in the first trial in the hog industry lawsuits, and I heard that his contract did not get renewed, but I cannot confirm that because they're under the gag order. Have you heard the same thing?
I've heard that they are taking the pigs off the farms once they're declared a nuisance, and I think that is a legal protection that they have to do, so that the farm is not considered a continuing nuisance.
Uh-huh. Have you had any you said 6 years you've been working there?
Yes, ma'am.
And the lawsuit, so they're from 2000, they're talking about nuisances that the neighbors have endured from 2001 to 2016, I think. So has any of the neighbors come to you about any complaints on any of the farms?
Nobody has been outspoken on it, and reached out to myself, Dean, or any of the guys that have been down there at Greenwood operating.
Mm-hmm.
I know, and I don't think they've made an official complaint to the Department of Environmental Quality since we've owned the farm in 2014.
And so you guys took the farm over in 2014. And when you say Dean, you're referring to Dean Hilton, the owner of the properties?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what does your farm do to cut down on the odor?
Well, I think, we all implement best management practices, taking into account where our neighbors are, what direction the wind is blowing, especially when it's time to irrigate, because I'm a human just like my next door neighbor is, and I could see the need for concern. But if I can limit that as a hog farmer by selectively pumping at a certain time of day when I know the wind will not be any issue at all, or updating equipment like we've done with the addition of the airway applicator, then that's what we're going to do. That's the steps we're going to take, because, these guys are our neighbors, whether we like it or not. They're our neighbors, and that farm is a part of the community, and it's part of our duty to do the best that we can for the community.
Right. So during the trial, I was in attendance on several days, and I saw that there were sprayers used to distribute the hog waste for on the soil for fertilizer. And I noticed that Greenwood 1 and 2 had switched the sprayer that they used. What kind of sprayer do you all? I think it was closer to the ground. Is that what you're referring to when you say
yes,
that?
ma'am. We switched from a traveling gun irrigation system, which is common. That's probably what 90% of your hog farmers use to irrigate with. It's cost effective for people to use that piece of equipment. We, however, felt that it would be in our best interest and would benefit the community and our neighbors around us more if we switched to an airway applicator, which is I think they called it a rolling bar in the trial. It's an actual airway applicator, and it does apply the waste closer to the ground. It's a tine aerator with essentially an irrigation hose hooked up to the back of it, and it uses splash pans to distribute the waste evenly across the path, so that it soaks into the soil quicker, so the crops take up the nutrients faster. It reduces any chance of any kind of runoff, and because you're applying it much lower to the ground surface, you don't have the wind drift nor the odor drift that you have with that you have the potential to have with the traveling gun system.
Lawsuits create tension. That's just a fact. So, a lot of people have said we should go to legislation instead of lawsuits, and sit around the table and talk about solutions. Is there any solution that you can see other than what you're currently practicing, what you just went over, to help these communities that are facing these lawsuits?
I think there's always room for improvement. Nobody's perfect, and I just speak that as my opinion. And I think there's ways that we could improve. However, I also feel that sometimes that technology is not very cost effective. It's not very. It's going to be hard to pay that piece of equipment off. Not everybody can afford to go out and spend the money that we spent on a 200 horsepower tractor and an airway setup. And so I think I would pay that on an individual farmer's basis, how they can improve, and I don't think there's going to be a one size fits all kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Mr. Brown, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here at bladenonline.com. And for more information, visit our website. Again, that's bladenonline.com.